The date is Friday, August 27th, and you're listening to Entertain This, a thought-provoking podcast encapsulating all things entertainment. In this episode, we invite a very special guest on to talk to us about something that has been going on since the beginning of recorded history, juggling. More specifically, the experiences and stories of a traveling entertainer out on the road. So enjoy.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of your favorite show on the internet, encapsulating all things entertainment. You've already guessed. It's Entertain This.
It's Entertain This.
Oh my god. I'm scared because every week it does kind of seem like you're becoming more possessed by whatever demon inside of you makes you do that voice.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know.
This is the sleep deprivation demon. That's what this is.
Hey, we all got our demons. It's okay.
That's terrifying. I just had an idea for what our Halloween special should be, so remind me to tell you after the show.
Oh God, no!
Everybody listening, get excited. It's gonna be big dumb. Anyway, another month has passed, and we were tasked once again with the never-ending challenge of finding somebody to top our previous guest from a previous month to prove that we are ever growing and we are ever improving, and that this show is still worth your time. And we promise it is. So thank you guys for tuning in. But we have a great guest this week. I'm very excited because kind of out of the blue, but Chloe, our fact checker, knew this guest from a previous engagement she had. So we're excited to bring him on. This is Brian Koenig.
Hey, nice to meet you guys.
Hey, welcome. Brian, you have a very interesting life, and I didn't give too much away in the cold open, but we would love to hear just like what you do, why you do it, and what you got going on. So if you want to give a little introduction, floor is yours.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Hey, thanks for having me. First of all, nice to meet you all. My name's Brian Koenig. I'm an entertainer, I would say, but I'm a juggler. I've worked for circuses, operas, schools, fairs, libraries, done just about every type of gig you could do as a gigging entertainer, from high profile to low profile. And I'm on the road right now.
That is so cool.
Just to be clear, you're not a juggalo, right?
I'm not a juggalo.
Okay.
We run in the same circles sometimes, but you know.
I thought I misheard you there because of the wagon.
He's not a juggalo, but everywhere he goes, people do know the part he's playing. Just to be clear. So you said that you've worked from high profile to low profile. I'm interested in what qualifies as a high profile juggling gig.
Yeah.
Because I can imagine what a low profile juggling gig is. And I assume that a low profile is like kids' birthday parties and things like that. If there's a lower profile, I would love to know.
A lower profile? Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, I think it's like the number of people at the birthday party, right? Like the time I showed up to this like party place where there's like hundreds of kids for this birthday party. I'm like, oh, it's gonna be a rockin' show. It's like, yeah, it's a birthday party, but it's gonna be fun. And then they take you to the private pizza room in the back, and it's for this family of a grandmother, grandfather, father, mother, and 2 kids. And I did the entire show hour long for those 6 people.
Wow.
So,
I don't know. I don't know if that's lower profile than like possibly like a show for like 5 or 6 45-year-old men.
Yeah, that'd be pretty weird. Yeah. But a high profile, I have to assume, is like the Circus or whatever circuses are still kind of out there.
Mm-hmm. Ringling like Bros, Cirque du Soleil,
Barnum and Bailey, things like that. Yeah. I think Cirque du Soleil is probably like the highest profile. From what I could think of.
Yeah, I'd say it's the highest profile that's like that people would know of, like off the top of their heads. Cirque du Soleil is definitely like an established sort of thing, and you know, people pay lots of money to go see Cirque, and they take care of their artists in general. It's not the most money you can make as a performer, but like it's for that kind of a thing, it's pretty unique.
Yeah,
so
I'm very interested in the fact that you said that like it's the highest that we would know of.
That actually scares me because I don't want to be hunted down by any like secret organization of jugglers. By like finding out too much, you know?
Yeah, I'd say it's kind of funny because I guess, you know, it's like terms of, you think of like what you can make the best living off of, I guess would be higher profile. I mean, if you want to talk in terms of most exposure, like halftime shows, if you're doing it in front of the largest crowd, like 17,000 people in an arena, any TV spots, there's some jugglers who open for like professional comedians. But one of my highest profile gigs, I'd say, was I worked at the Metropolitan Opera a couple years, 2019, right before the pandemic. And so we were in a show there, an opera called Akhenaten, and they featured 12 jugglers throughout the entire thing. And we were on stage 2.5 hours out of the 3-hour production, and juggling to Philip Glass music. So it was pretty high profile. I'd say.
Pretty high profile.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's like a sort of secret underground like group of people who just want like jugglers at everything they're at, but you always see like in movies at those like fancy like black tie like weird parties, they always have like a juggler there for some reason who's also just walking around juggling, and it's like part of the ambiance of the party.
That is so true. I've gotten so many roles in shows that way as well. Just like
really?
I think there's just something in like the in the air for all the director creative types. They're just like, oh, and get us a juggler. We need a juggler. And then they just stick us in the back corner.
And you're just like there. It's always pointed out in those YouTube videos where they're like details you might have missed. They're like, well, why was there this random ass juggler here? Maybe this in Inception proves like this is still part of the dream because there's this juggler here or whatever.
What does it mean, man?
Absolutely.
So that leads me to another question, which is, I guess going into this, for some reason, I had only considered like you being a live performer, but what all spans of work have you like done?
Yeah, in terms of like live performance, obviously being in shows as a part of like an ensemble cast or doing solo appearances in shows, everything from like community theater to like Broadway type productions. But then I've been on reality TV shows, local reality TV shows. Like there's the CW Dayton did a reality TV show where they took their these young, attractive people to the circus I worked for. We trained them how to do circus acts. And so I was on the local CW network, episodes of TLC's Most Outrageous Kids Parties. I was in a documentary about ventriloquists one time in the background. I don't.
Very cool.
You get a little bit of everything.
That's really interesting. Juggling feels like one of the oldest art forms to exist. Like, the idea of juggling kind of goes hand in hand with like medieval times. Last week we talked about like Arthurian legends and stuff like that. But like even back then, like you could get cast in movies that are set like way back when and like in the future. Like juggling feels like this career path that's never going to go away. And it's timeless. Like, I guess you don't think about that until you start to delve into the world of juggling.
It's like the epitome of like the court jester in the corner. Like,
there's always that dude
doing his thing. Yeah.
But like you can equally imagine a juggler in like Black Mirror episode set in the future, like juggling neon like bowling pins and still like in it. So it's crazy. I imagine that it'll be a long-standing career path for you, which is great. Another thing that kind of interests us in getting you on the show is that you're very knowledgeable about what you do. Not only do you know how to juggle, but like about juggling, the history of juggling, you have a passion for. And we would love to just like tap into that and just hear like everything you want to tell us. We want to be your sponge for the next few minutes.
I should have brought the books with me because I have a
books.
Bunch. There's a lot. There's a lot of books. Yo, there's a juggling book, and it's not as valuable now because they've done a reprint of it. But it was called 4,000 Years of Juggling, and they were selling for hundreds of dollars, like $300-$400, because they were so limited in print. People were collecting them that weren't even jugglers.
This is exactly what I mean. Like 4,000 years of juggling. Ever since like we learned how to stand upright, the next thing we learned was how to throw shit in the air. And that's incredible.
Yeah. It's been around, and it's kind of interesting. One of the most, I'll get back to the beginning, but I think it's fascinating because my friend Tom Wall, who's a really amazing juggler, he performed with Cirque du Soleil, and he runs a publishing company. And he publishes books by performers about performing. And he wrote a history book about juggling. And one of the big things that he came across researching, is that the word for magic and juggling were interchangeable for most of the last 10 500 years when people were writing in English or versions of English, Old English, Middle English. And so it's kind of hard to get a handle on the recent history of juggling up until like the 1900s. Because they were used interchangeably. So they would say there was a magician and they would mean a juggler. They would say a juggler and they would mean a magician. It was just a word for parlor tricks. And that was until this performer named Paul Cinquevalli came around. He was I think he was British. See, I'm bad. But I didn't write the book, I guess. So
you're like, I'm bad. And then you're like throwing out knowledge that I would never have gotten unless like talking to you.
Yeah, this guy, he came around and he was, it's funny because people know, like, if I said Houdini, you would know exactly who I was talking about, right? I mean, you'd have an idea. And he was as famous or more famous than Houdini in his own time. He was just so wildly famous as a performer, a live performer, because he would do amazing feats. Like he would balance a cannon on his face and he would juggle like rifles and stuff. And like he would do crazy stuff, but he was very specific that he wasn't doing magic. He said, what I'm doing is real. I want people to know. And he basically forced the term juggling to mean what he did, which was balancing and throwing and manipulating objects and not deception and misdirection.
Yeah, so. That's something that I hadn't considered when you had mentioned that they're interchangeable. I was like, oh, well, that makes sense because like, I guess I gave too much credit to magicians. Like sleight of hand is sort of a form of juggling.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could see like definitely it discredits a juggler to label them as magician because magicians are known for like tricks and stuff like that. I had a friend in high school who also was kind of involved in circus stuff, and he used to do this.
He said that like he's into drugs. He was kind of involved in circus stuff.
He kept sneaking off to the bathroom and throwing some bowling pins around,
Well, he was one of the bad kids that my mom told me to stay away from.
So we worked in like the theater a lot. We were doing a lot of like set building and stuff like that, which often required us to use ladders to get up to higher places. And then I remember just one day, I was maybe a freshman when he was a senior. I walked in to paint a set and I was like, I can't find the ladder. Where is it? And somebody just pointed like out past the curtain. So I opened the curtain and this kid has a 12-foot ladder like balanced on his chin. I'm like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, it's classic.
Witchcraft. That's what's going on.
That's crazy. But yeah, it's interesting to compare them to magicians. That's not something I had thought about before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool now that but ever since there was that diversion, it just also happens to kind of coincide with the like coming to like when print publications became a lot more easy to make and were more accessible for people. So we just have a lot more written knowledge about juggling because playbills. We'd get playbills, we get like posters for shows that were coming up. So basically a lot of our knowledge of juggling starts in the late 1800s, early 1900s specifically. Mm-hmm. But we know more about it going way back. The first depictions, I think, of juggling went back to the Beni Hassan tombs in Egypt. These drawings on the wall, there's these women that are standing in profile as they do in their two-dimensional drawings, and they're like tossing. And they're tossing. They're playing a game of like they each have like two objects, two balls they're throwing in the air. And they believe this is the earliest depiction. They thought it was like a throwing and catching game. And so that's what we consider the first depictions of juggling. And we're so into it that like one of my best friends has a tattoo across his back of the four women juggling. Actually, it's three women juggling and one doing acrobatics, which we've learned now. But
that's incredible.
And one of the other cool things with that history is that a lot of our knowledge of juggling it's something that happens across cultures, and it seems to have developed like universally from people. Like it wasn't started in one place. There's depictions of juggling in ancient China. There was like stories of how a juggler juggled 9 swords in front of an opposing army and scared them and turned them away.
Wow.
And
that turned me away.
It's so cool. It's like
Dude's
we
got
won 9
the war
swords juggling. It's like, of course you did. That's the scariest thing anyone could ever do in front of an army of men.
Yeah.
It's like the equivalent of like that's probably the oldest depiction of like General Grievous as well. Like just out there with like 4 swords.
I was wondering when we were going to get to Star Wars. I was looking at some of your past episodes and I was hoping for it.
He's got 4 swords. I'm not messing with them. What are you crazy?
It's a bit off subject, but he would be an incredible juggler.
Oh, yeah.
He would.
Absolutely, he would.
4 arms.
But yeah, that's so cool. Like to defend yourself with just juggling and for that to scare people. It would scare me if I was lining up to fight somebody and he started juggling 4 swords for sure.
Yeah. Sometimes it scares people in the sense of like, hey, don't go near that juggler. Come here, kids, go over this way. But that's the best I think we get these days.
A sort of side question, though I do want to continue down the path of the history of juggling just because I'm already super into it. But
yeah, I'm here.
Kind of a side question since we're on swords. What would you say is maybe one of the most dangerous things that you juggle, if not swords? If swords, then like, are you also into like the sword swallowing? I know that's often how like jugglers end the whole sword juggling thing.
Yeah. So danger is obviously a thing we get asked to do. Like, oh, do you do swords? Do you do knives? Do you do chainsaws?
Chainsaws, yeah.
Yeah. I saw where you're going. It's funny because it's kind of irrelevant. Like if a sword versus or like a knife versus a torch. I wish I had them in here. They're in the vehicle packed away right now. But they're basically, if they're a club-shaped object and they have a handle on one side and they're weighted evenly, it's not super different. And like, even if the knives aren't razor sharp, they're sharp enough, like they like cut a watermelon in half if I need it to, but like, they're not going to like slice my hand to the bone if I just touch the blade. And like, if I'm going to catch the wrong side, I usually know, so I can like be careful about it. And like, you can get a nick or something. But with torches too, the way they work is you burn Kevlar wick, and you dip lighter fluid into it. And so it's really burning the vapor off of the lighter fluid. And so it's not super heated. Part of like the top might be, but you're not going to get a terrible burn either if you catch the wrong side. The most dangerous things, I guess, chainsaws are just hard because they're so heavy. Like a normal juggling device weighs like 1 to 2 pounds max. And the lightest chainsaw you can buy commercially is like 12 pounds. And
the fact that this information tells me you've done it before, and that's very exciting.
I have done it. I have purchased chainsaws, and I have decided it wasn't worth the effort because you gotta it's too close to maintenance. You have to like use the right mix of gas and whatever oil, mm-hmm. and then store them upright, and I don't know.
Yeah, that's just a lot. And if you don't do it, people don't notice. It's like when you pull them out that people are like, oh, chainsaws. Like they don't think about it.
And to your point, I'd say the most dangerous things with juggling tend to be when you get into combination tricks, which is a really common thing where you combine multiple skills. Like you were saying, sword swallowing is legitimately dangerous. I don't do it. There's actually very few people that do it. It's in the hundreds, maybe thousands. There's like a society of sword swallowers. That you're supposed to be a member of if you do it. And it's like truly like a thing where, very few people, I have met several people that taught themselves. But it's a very niche thing and it's very dangerous. And like, it's just it's a wild card when it comes to performing. Cause a lot of times people will do a thing and they'll pull it out and they'll let an audience member do it. And if they just do the wrong thing, if they pull it a wrong angle, they can perforate your esophagus and you get infections in there really easily. So.
Yeah, no thanks.
Yeah, I imagine it's not like a great thing.
I broke my leg 2 years ago. We're doing chair stacking, which is like where you take the chairs and I used to do a lot more acrobatics, trapeze, stuff like that in the circus. And I broke my leg practicing chair stacking, teaching it to somebody at a rehearsal. And ever since then, I've really just kind of tamped down like the physical danger that I put myself in because I can do a full show without endangering my life. And as I'm getting a little bit older, a little less agile, not that old, but just like I can do this longer and not get hurt. So yeah,
that's incredible. Let's jump back to the history because it's incredible. So a man fought an army with juggling and won. And we love that.
And,
they just got scared. Yeah,
that was in dynastic China. I wish I knew. I should have the book with me, but this is all stuff from my friend Tom Wall, and then my other friend David Kane, who runs the only juggling history museum in the world, or one of the only, in Middletown, Ohio. Probably not too far.
That is.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's literally a day's drive. That's like a day trip for most of us.
Yeah.
So that's incredible. We're gonna have to
30 minutes down the road.
We should just record. We can record the follow-up podcast inside of his museum.
We absolutely could.
David does a lot of the research on like modern jugglers and like all the news clippings and everyone from like the last, and he documents it all. And he has tons of like 5, 10, 15 books of just like 100 modern jugglers you should know. And but you go back to there's the drawings in Egypt. There's writings about jugglers defending armies with swords. In the Pacific Islands, there's a nation called Tonga, and they were like a Pacific Island nation, small island somewhere in the South Pacific. And they have a really unique thing where all the women in their culture, they grow up and they do a juggling pattern. It's like a game they play. And actually, I can just show you. I can show you because I'm just trying to explain this. I can just show you here. Yeah.
For anybody who just listens to the audio version of our podcast, this is a friendly reminder while he's grabbing these things. Like, we do have a video version as well, and maybe this is the episode
you guys are missing out.
That you check it out on. It's on our YouTube channel. Just look up "Entertain This" with the 3 dots. What's that called? An ellipses? Entertain This ellipses. Yeah, check us out on YouTube.
He's coming back with the bowl.
Okay. I didn't want to do this with pins because it's harder to do and I'm plugged into a wire, but I don't have the balls with me. So a normal pattern.
If you need to be unplugged, you totally can be.
Okay. If I'm gonna mess everything up probably.
No, I was just take the headphones out. Never mind. All is good.
Yeah, we can't hear you anymore.
It's okay. We'll figure it out later. You do your thing.
We can't hear you. Yeah, you got to plug them back in.
I guess unplug was a kind of specific command, wasn't it?
Yeah. Unplug. Okay.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Can you hear us?
Yeah.
All right.
Is your recording still going?
I'm recording still going, and I'm gonna talk and do a thing real quick, and I'll come back on.
Yeah, I love that.
Okay. So a normal juggling pattern is called a cascade, and it does crossing throws like this. And if you don't flip them, they just go like that. But in the Pacific Island nation of Tonga, these women would play this game, and all the girls are taught this game, and they would just do a shower pattern where you throw in one hand and you catch in the other, which is what a lot of people think of juggling and how juggling's done in cartoons, where one hand does all the throwing and one hand does all the catching.
Right.
Like that. And so,
wow, he just really did it.
Yeah. And so,
what an incredible morning we're having.
These girls would do that, but that's like a harder way to juggle, and they wouldn't do it with just 3. They would do it with 4, 5, and 6 nuts. They have these nuts, these like large nuts on the island that they would practice with, and that was like a game. And like all the women, from girls to like older women, still play this game. It's it's a fun thing, and that's been going on for generations. They don't even know how long. So it's one of those things that's ubiquitous. It just happens and is and is around. And then you get up to the 1800s. There's like the juggler of Notre Dame. There's like that story about like a juggler who performed in the Cathedral of Notre Dame for the statue of Jesus or Mary or something, and it had some like very religious significance. And then up to the modern day, jugglers in circuses and birthday parties and in operas and in
I don't know why I thought that the story of the guy juggling in Notre Dame was gonna end with the statue crying, but I just did.
Oh, I think it does. I think that's the thing.
Is that it?
Yeah.
He like juggles, and then like the statue of Jesus like weeps or something, and everyone's like, "Wow, juggling." Which I agree.
That's one of the shortest verses in the Bible. It's 2 words: Jesus wept, or Jesus wept,
and that's it.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. I don't know why, but as you're like, go ahead.
I would say the writers nailed it on that one.
Yeah, they were like, you know what? No rewrites. This is good. I don't think we can get more powerful than this. I don't know why, but as you were kind of discussing the history, you kept saying like juggling books, and there's something very attractive about this mental image of a juggler juggling books.
Oh yeah.
Like that just feels like a thing that once that happens, it may fix global warming. I don't know why.
It's actually kind of funny you mentioned that, because I kind of left out like the whole modern era of juggling from like now back to like, pre-World War I.
Let's talk about it. Let's get into it.
Yeah,
they're deep in the trenches.
One of the
hey, come on.
And with that, there was like this whole generation of jugglers for probably maybe 30-40 years, where like the way jugglers performed late 1800s, early 1900s was a style called gentleman juggling, or like dining room juggling, where basically they would just perform with everyday props that people were used to seeing. So instead of clubs, they'd be doing like lightweight chairs, and they'd be balancing tables on their face, and they, instead of like balancing a thing on their head, they'd do like a candelabra with like candles lit on it. And so it was really common. They would do like a top hat, a cigar, and like a cane. And there was this whole like generation of jugglers that would just use common props before we had people start manufacturing these swanky little plastic doodads.
Cool.
Yeah. And so and books were a thing that they would juggle, books, paper, newspapers, balancing,
It's whatever they could find, really, right?
So is that considered, like, I would have to assume just from the information you've already provided that is more difficult because the weights are so different between the three objects. Also, if you've ever tried to throw a bowler cap, it is impossible. Those things are so difficult to do literally anything other than sit on your head with. There was a while where I had gotten into Charlie Chaplin impersonating.
Yeah.
I was trying to learn like all the hat tricks that he did and everything, all the hat juggling. That's a whole thing.
Yeah. I have two that I wear in the show and I juggle both of them. So
okay, let's get into that for a second, just because this is going to pique my own curiosity, my own disgusting fascinations. Do you do like the hat juggling, like Charlie Chaplin, like rolling it down your arm, rolling it like back up? And
I dabble. Yeah. I'm not like a hat juggler. It's not my main discipline, but I use it as a character element in my act. So like I'll do a couple of tricks where like I'm throwing the hat, catching on the foot, kicking it back to the head. But the secret with the hat thing is probably the issue that you had is you probably didn't have a heavy enough hat. I have a specially made Nils Pole bowler, 100% wool, weighs about 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds, and it's meaty. And but that helps with all the flipping. And if it's not like that, it's not going to be stable in the air. It's not going to roll on your body. So it's all about props.
Right.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But
I even found the bendy cane and everything.
Oh yeah, the bendy cane. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I love Chaplin. I actually have a picture. I mean, I shouldn't say I love Chaplin. I think he was a complicated person, and there's probably some. If we want to,
I hear you.
Yeah,
I hear you. He did some things.
Chaplin was a very good performer.
That's great. And
anyone can learn a lot from him if they're looking to improve their physical comedy. So
he did a lot for both the performing arts and the cinematic arts, but he also just generally did a lot. Hey, historic figures, check out our website. Historic figures are all problematic, and we just have to deal with that.
Yeah, definitely.
Talking about juggling, am I right?
A lot of modern people are problematic, so
it's fair.
It happens.
I forgot to ask, is this a family friendly podcast? Like, are we PG?
No. It depends on how you define that, but generally no.
If I can get into an anecdote real quick, and I doubt my mom's listening, but if she is, hi mom. My mom tried to listen to our podcast when we were live a couple weeks ago, and I started off by singing a version of a Biggie Smalls song that includes the Thomas the Tank Engine theme song.
Yep.
And it literally starts by like going, come on, mother effers, come on. My mom said, I sat through your entire time doing that, and then I turned it off because I couldn't go on from that, if that's how you start the show. And I was like, I understand and totally get that. So no, we are not.
Mostly.
We are not PG. So if there's some dirty juggling secrets that you want to talk about, we're in. Let us know.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, we can get there. I just wasn't sure.
We can get there.
We can get there. I don't know. Yeah.
Juggling after dark. What is
as a juggler, you're really flirting with you're family friendly most of the time, but you can be in like cabarets, burlesque shows. You can do a little bit of everything. I think the weirdest thing I ever did was I got hired to perform. This was back in my doing lots of random gigs days. I was doing balloon animals, right? But I was on stilts. But I wasn't just doing balloon animals on stilts. Right, I was a Chippendale, so I was just wearing pants, cufflinks, and a bow tie, and I've got my little balloon apron on, and I'm at this. I show up to this Halloween party in the suburbs, and I'm talking like 3-bedroom house in like a cookie cutter neighborhood, like nice little place, and there's like 60, 70 people inside. They've got dueling DJs in this living room, like literally facing each other, and they hired me and a little person who was an exotic dancer. So they hired a stilt walker and a little person, and she got in a car accident on the way there, and she wasn't there. So they were like really angry that like they're like, where's my little person? And I'm like, I don't think you should ask it like that.
Where's my little person?
But they're like also like they're like looking up at me because I'm 9 feet tall and my head is like pushed against the ceiling.
You're like, you are the little person.
like they hired me on stilts and it's like 8-foot ceilings, and so I'm like tucked in there shirtless doing balloons. And then my job there was to make dirty balloons. So I was making dick heads. So I just make like balloons that look like, phallic objects coming off. And then I would, we'd do every other thing that you could imagine that you could try and make out of a flesh tone balloon.
We're gonna have to have you on, like, maybe not an episode of the podcast, but like if we ever do like a visual show, like we're gonna have to come with a bunch of stuff and just be like, and here's a dirty balloon. You might have to censor this one. And here's
just
me juggling. Here's
That'll
me
go on my head,
juggling
of course. Yeah,
books about jugglers and
we've juggled everything. There's this thing we have at juggling festivals. Well, I guess we have juggling festivals, obviously.
I was really hoping you were going to call them conferences.
Oh, yeah.
How not safe for work is this story going to get at the juggling conference?
It doesn't. It can. Well, so that's the thing. It's like we have these juggling festivals, and so you've got a lot of
work. What do you?
Yeah,
of course it's safe.
you got a lot of jugglers who get together, and a lot of us. I'd say jugglers at these things are really only about 25% performers, maybe 15%. The rest are just people who like juggling. It's a hobby. For most people, it's a hobby, which is awesome. And but for those of us who perform, we rarely see each other because we don't tend to live in the same spots because it's it's kind of hard to live in the same spot as a bunch of other professional jugglers. You need space.
Yeah.
And so we get together, and then we have this thing, late night show. It's a tradition called the Renegade Show. The Renegade Show is a late night, no rules, no holds barred trick show that usually happens in a bar a couple blocks away from the convention where anything goes. And I think the motto is, it's better be short, funny, or good, and you can say and do whatever you want. So there's often nudity, there's swearing, there's drinking, there's bodily fluid tricks. Now it's a little tamer these days because of like cameras and stuff. It's not as raunchy, and some places
leave your cameras at the door.
Yeah, some places are like no frontal nudity, please, and we're like, okay,
fine, don't be fine, whatever.
Yeah. But so but then we'll get together and we have all these dumb ideas, like, I don't know, if you could take a circular object and place it on your head, where's another place on your body you could place it if you weren't wearing anything? Just put it down here. Or like you try like toss something across the stage and like catch it in your butt cheeks. Yeah, just things like that. Dumb things like just it's good. It's a good time. It's a fun time.
The title of this episode: Brian Koenig, juggling but sexy.
There you go.
You can just use the part where I'm just jamming my hand into my
Perfect thumbnail. Let's cut it right there, guys.
Incredible. So a question that I kind of got while listening to that, especially when I think it was when you had said that people are taking up juggling as a hobby. Anyone who was interested in like taking up juggling as a hobby, what are some tips that you would give like a new juggler or a nude juggler, whichever you prefer?
A nude juggler.
Yeah. For a nude juggler, I'd say do it at your own house.
Don't do it on the streets.
Use the correct set of balls.
Now, if you can juggle your balls,
you should probably see a doctor.
Yeah.
So it's really cool. When I started juggling, which wasn't that long, it was 2005-ish. I got really lucky because it's coincided with the birth of YouTube, and so juggling was basically like only discussed on like internet forums, like weird what do you call it? Chat rooms and stuff. And then YouTube came out and gave people a place to upload videos, and like it exploded. And I was one of the many early adopters of like in the juggling community of using YouTube to share videos and get feedback on my juggling. And that's how I learned. And nowadays that's super common. That's like what everybody does. You learn things from YouTube if you want to find something out. So there's some really great tutorials on YouTube. My friend Taylor Glenn, you can find her if you look up Taylor Tries. She'll probably be the first result if you look up juggling stuff anyway, but she does a bunch of really good tutorials, just basic juggling, and then like every one of like a library of like 23 ball tricks that you could learn. And you can do it with tennis balls, lacrosse balls, baseballs, balled up socks, oranges, whatever you got. 3 equally weighted objects would probably be the thing. As we were saying earlier, different weights is very difficult. So
I imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, boys, but everyone's tried juggling before. Like, even if like you knew that you couldn't, you threw 3 things in the air and you were like, I'm going to catch all 3, and then you don't, and it goes everywhere. Your mom yells at you because you broke something. We've all been there.
My brain can't do it. I have 2 hands. There's 3 objects.
Yeah. One of them
Where's
has
the
to
third
stay
one?
in the
The
air.
brain
Like,
has to like, okay, where's the trajectory and all that? It's like, I couldn't do it.
Yeah,
I
like, what
certainly
the
can't
hell?
do it now.
so what would you say is the most common mistake that people make when like they're like, I'm gonna juggle? Do you think that's the most common mistake? Is they just decide
They're just
Or
gonna
do you
do it.
think,
What?
Yeah, deciding they want to juggle is the biggest mistake. Yeah, I don't
Huge
need,
mistake.
I don't need any
Wouldn't
more
recommend.
competition.
That's totally fair.
The biggest mistake is people think they start with 3, when in reality you start with 1, and it sounds really reductive, but you just basically want to take one thing, and juggling is one throw. Like the traditional, it's just this throw. It's just this throw again and again with 3 objects. That's a cascade pattern, right?
Mhm.
But if you just practice that, like that's a thing you needs to be like, you're not looking at it, you're like, it's going in and out of your peripheral vision. I'm tossing around, for those of you listening, I'm tossing around a AC adapter for a USB cord. It's
Small
still
handheld object. Yeah.
a small handheld object. I could have used I have my egg cooker here. I could have used that, but
It's kind of random. You're just taking things off your shelf there.
yeah.
Well,
no,
I was actually thinking of like this earlier. It's like when you're walking around, just like, I don't know, like a crate and barrel. Are you just like looking at stuff like, oh yeah, I could use that.
Oh, I could juggle that.
yeah, I think as I've gotten older, I do like, it's kind of like when you like climb on things when you're younger, like I just want to climb on everything. And now it's like, yeah, like if I see something I know I could juggle, I won't, whatever. But I will go out a lot of times. And when I'm looking, I'll just like go do a lap around like a Marshall's or something, a place that has random stuff, and be like, oh, maybe that's like a good ball. Or like you'll find like a nice thing to spin or a funny object that like I had a friend who does a routine where he balances a platform, like a stick on his face that has an acrylic platform on it, and then he has one of those dogs that you wind up and it does a backflip, but only after like 30 seconds. And so he's like, it's like this really big build where the dramatic music is going and he's balancing this platform on the face, and then the dog does a backflip on the platform. you just never know when you're gonna stumble into something like that. So I'd like to say, I'm always on the lookout.
That's incredible.
Yeah, you might not know this, but I'm going to tell a little side story here.
Yeah, let's do it.
One of the first parties that I went to with Alex, and I think Michael was there too, but this is the event that brought us all together. So
we're party animals. We party all.
Yeah.
We've gone to like
we
parties
party hard
before, and then one of them we all happen to meet each other at. So,
so
very serendipitous.
This is a golden memory, if there is such a thing in my brain. But I remember Alex was doing magic tricks, and I love magic tricks. Because I don't know how to do them, because they really are magic to me.
I barely remember this, because I remember, if I can add in real quick, my roommate was way better at the time at magic tricks, but he was an asshole about it. So like he would do a magic trick, and then if you weren't impressed, he'd get upset with you. So I was drunk, and I was like, I'm gonna do magic tricks, but really bad. Keep that in mind as this continues.
Look, they still impressed me. Okay, I don't remember if it was you or the other guy that was doing them, but I saw some magic tricks that night and my mind was blown, and I don't know how they work, but I think that if I may draw this back to the actual topic here, is like juggling to me is that particular level of like wow factor. Cause I personally, I can't juggle. Anybody that can do a thing that I can't do, I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. Where'd you learn how to do that? Like, I want to know everything about it. But just to watch somebody do something that I can't do is the magic in and of itself, really. So juggling is magic. I'll say that much.
That's really nice. And I think it's funny though that in that story you guys touched on a really funny topic in the community, which is like jugglers and magicians don't really get along.
Magicians are assholes. Like that's common knowledge at this point, right?
We take like, pot shots at each other. Yeah,
that's some beef.
The thing that, okay, so if you want to talk about like entertainment or like in like terms of like salesmen, like magicians are the sleazy car salesmen of like entertainment. And then like the jugglers are like the person who just has like this invention, like, look at this thing I made, it's so great. And you're like, yeah, okay, it's not really, it's like whatever, yeah, it's nice. But like the magician is gonna like, oh hey, you want this? Oh yeah, do you want to see this? This is really nice. It's like the sham wow guy. Like if there's
in your face about it.
Yeah, like the sham wow guy is what I think of when I think of like the average magician. Now this is not true. There's a lot of really great magicians, but there's a lot of really bad magicians too that are just like like they'll go like they just think you want to see something. Like I don't juggle in bars. Like I don't just go into a bar and start juggling for people. But if you ever know,
people would love it. Like
that.
people would go crazy about that. But it's
in the right context. But if I like went into a bar, I walked up to a single woman, right, and I was just like, hey,
that's
like, hey,
always a bad idea, no matter what the next step is.
And I'm like, hey, do you want to see a juggling trick? And she just like, and I just start going, which is what magicians do, and it's like an aesthetic of like how to perform. But like,
get the fuck out of here! What do you?
They just like think that they're like they just think that they're entitled to your attention in a way that I don't think. And jugglers are more just like, I'm having fun. Look at me, like over in the corner.
The four of us, can we all agree?
No, we can never agree.
There's another podcast out there called My Brother and Me, and they hate jugglers. They like famously.
What? I love My Brother and Me, and I didn't know
they are way against jugglers. I've listened to every single episode of theirs, and sort of earlier on, they had to like squash their beef with jugglers because for a while they were like, jugglers aren't allowed to listen to our podcast.
What? Why?
Yeah, that's like a thing that they did, but they've since squashed it. I don't remember why. I don't know, but we love jugglers here. If we can all agree, fuck magicians.
Yeah,
I kind of like David Blaine and Penn and Teller.
David Blaine is pretty cool.
Okay, here's the biggest difference, and especially sitting in this comparison of like the guy in a bar doing his performance thing. A magician really is there to steal the attention of like one person and put the spotlight on them. And nobody likes that, especially in like the growing society of like anxiety being a huge thing. And especially like social anxiety being this huge thing. Nobody wants to be the person the magician's messing with because the magician is doing a show, but the magician needs a singular person to like do their show. Mm-hmm. A juggler, like, and I commend you for this. You guys could be in an apocalypse away from thousands of people and you'll still pick some shit up and start throwing it. I love that.
That's such a good point. Yeah, it is really interesting that like as a performance art, juggling exists external to the performance. And magic doesn't really, because magic is, you can do it, but it's all about magic is really interesting because of this. It's very like it only exists in the being seen, right? Mm-hmm. It's from a perspective, from a situation, whereas juggling is it can be external to itself. But yeah, magic's back.
It harpers back to that point that you had made before about like the guy who was like, do not call me a magician because what I'm doing is real. Mm-hmm. It's like magicians have to trick somebody, but jugglers are just juggling.
Yeah, and I think it's really cool. I don't know if you guys have ever seen Penn and Teller's Fool Us. Not to talk up some magicians. But okay. It's a really great example of like a lot of magic just has such a history and such like people just know about magic. And so many magicians kind of do the same thing. And they do the same kind of magic. There's the up close magic, the card magic, the coin magic, and the same tricks. And you buy new tricks and you pay to learn them from somebody else. Like it's a very kind of acquisition based kind of art form. And then with Penn and Teller's Fool Us, they're truly doing something that's like unique. And like the way that they've always performed is they perform a magic trick and then they will explain to you how they did it, but sometimes they don't actually explain to you how they did it, but they make you think that you know what they're doing, and they make it fun and they make it so that it doesn't cheapen the magic, where like the reason magicians have the code of like never telling anybody how they do something is because they will ask you to see it again. And if you show them and you tell them how they do it, they won't care afterwards, right?
Yeah,
like
it devalues the trick.
Yeah.
And they're all so like interconnected that you can ruin somebody else's act by doing that. That's why the masked magician was like, he had to stay masked because people were trying to like kill him for doing the shit that he was doing.
Yeah. Like even like personally, like, well, sorry.
You go ahead.
On this subject is magicians, like even friends of mine, like, you know, they won't tell, like friends that I worked with for years, like I'll see the tricks enough that I'll know how they're done or whatever, but they genuinely still won't, like a friend of yours who's a magician who like it does it professionally, they won't explain it to you unless you're another magician. They just will kind of like it, and it's something that's so interesting. It's so like across the board, it just happens so consistently. And it's very interesting that they have that kind of concentrated idea of what their art form is, and it's very unique that it's like so intense.
It's like Fight Club, I guess.
Yeah, it really is.
About Fight Club, you don't talk about Fight Club. So
right. Our sort of, it's not a magician band. If you're a magician, you can listen to our podcast. Not that we really have any credit to tell anyone they can't listen. Please, magicians, if you guys just want to hate listen to us, that'd be great. I will say Penn and Teller do get a pass because they are, every act that they've ever done, they've been like, we're about to lie to you. So get ready, because
Yeah,
we're
they're upfront
liars,
about it.
and that's what we do. And I respect that. I will say,
well,
sort of, go ahead.
Oh, no, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. I will say a sort of side story about Penn and Teller, just because this is entertain this and I want to share it with you guys. They did a performance. It's pretty famous. You've all probably seen it. I believe it was on SNL, but it was like when they were like a lot younger. And it was the anti-gravity performance. They were like doing stuff, and then it would like float up, and they were like, everything we're doing is a lie. See if you can catch what we're doing. And like, they do the entire act. They like do a card trick, and they let go, and the cards would all fly up in the air, and they would like blow up a balloon, and it would float up, and without it being like full of helium, and they would like make a doll dance, and you're like, how are they doing all of this? And they're like, just remember that we're liars, and this is TV, and everything on TV is fake. And then when they zoomed out, it showed that they had done the entire act strapped upside down with the camera upside down as well, so that it showed them like they were right side up, but the entire time they were like expanded, they were like hanging basically by their legs from this pole. And you're like, holy shit, they didn't do anything. They just like put a camera upside down, and that was the entire act.
Amazing.
But I do respect that kind of like, we're going to trick you and then immediately tell you how we tricked you, because that's the fun of this.
Yeah. And if you want to respect Penn a little bit more, Penn Jillette is an amazing juggler. He started as a juggler, working the Ren Fair circuit, and he got into magic later.
I just realized that his name is Penn
juggle.
Jillette.
Yeah.
Like Gillette pen. He literally just looked at it and was like, we'll do the opposite.
Oh yeah. I wonder if that's his actual name. I don't actually know now.
Sure
is it really?
Yeah. It's Gillette with a J though. So
yeah.
Oh,
Penn Fraser Gillette.
The second best a man can get.
If you guys want to, before we hop back into the conversation of juggling, one last thing on magicians, and then we'll stop talking about them. But if you want to like completely blow your mind and feel uncomfortable for an hour, Teller actually did a TED Talk where you just like watch Teller talk for an hour about like magicians. And
I don't believe it.
I watched it and I was like, this is so weird. Like,
he can't talk. Don't be silly.
Gillette wasn't up there. It was just him, and he was just talking about like their performance and like how they got together and what magic means to him. It's pretty incredible, but it will make you uncomfortable for the entirety of it.
That's hilarious. Did you guys ever see that guy on America's Got Talent a few years back? He went by the name of Tape Face.
Yeah, I love Tape Face.
The boy with tape on his face.
Yeah, I've actually seen a lot of his work too.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, Tape Face is I'd say he's a physical comedian, a mime, if you will, and he basically puts a strip of black duct tape across his face, and he kind of has this like punk emo look or whatever, and he does really basic pantomime routines that are hilarious, and he just does really well, like two oven mitts singing, like, and I will always like still love you at each other, just like that's his entire routine on America's Got Talent, is like them singing at each other. Like this, I'm pantomiming on screen if you're listening, but
yeah,
it's so good because there's so much character that he gives to these two oven mitts that you're like, oh my god, look at him
or
go.
Like the routine where you walk out and you have like looks like you have like a person with you and they're wearing like a red dress and like you're controlling one arm and the other one is like them and they're like their hands getting like, hey, watch your hand, and you know, like they're like you know, that kind of thing. So he does that kind of stuff. And his name's Sam Wells. He's also a juggler, started off as a street performer. But I was in Vegas once, just on a trip with some friends and family. And I was at a bar at the Flamingo, at the Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville.
God bless.
And
best place to be on the show.
$5 blackjack. So this is Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville. You guys owe me a sponsorship. $5 blackjack tables. The dealers wear Hawaiian shirts, and it's just low key.
Like you do.
Yeah, you have to wait a little while to get a table, but we're there. And then there's a bar right behind us. And I look behind me, and I'm like, oh, this is like back in his heyday when he first got his Vegas show after the show. He has a show on the Strip. And I see him. He's just standing over at the bar, and he's in costume. No, he doesn't. He's in costume though, like because he does a show at the Flamingo, which is the attached casino. And I'm like, oh, that's Tape Face. So I just walk over and I was just introduced myself and we talked for a few minutes. It was just very jarring though. The first minute was like, first of all, seeing what his face looked like, and it was cool. He was cool. And then I was like, can we take a photo? And he was like, yep. And he immediately covered his face up, which was kind of brilliant. So
that's very brilliant. Yeah.
Something to be said about that. And also, talking about, this is entertainment related, I think that type of act is brilliant because, like the Blue Men Group, you can have an infinite number of them.
Yeah.
You can put a guy in like a black jumpsuit with tape on his face and spiky black hair in any country. And they have like 3 people that perform as tape face now. And they have tons of Bloomin' Group that are just percussionists that are good at moving around, you know?
Yeah.
So
that's incredible. Okay. We're approaching near the end of the episode.
Oh, shoot. Sorry.
No. We got about like 10 minutes left. So this is just going to be like rapid fire Q&A for the boys and I, just like questions. If you guys have any, of course. But my first question is, if you had to pick like where you end up, like I know that you're touring right now, which is incredible, and we were very excited to hear that you got this gig because it sounds very cool. I mean, you're living in a hotel right now, which you know, however you feel about it, is still cool from like our perspective.
It's the rock and roll lifestyle, man. You're doing it.
I'm working a county fair in Alpena, Michigan. It's not a bad gig. It's fine. I'm right by the Great Lakes, so
we like that.
Nice. But if you had to pick like a place that you ended up, like what's your end goal with juggling? Is it like sort of a Vegas show? Like what all would you want to be doing end game?
Yeah, gosh, that's a great question. You sound like my parents. Yeah, there's a lot of different ways. I really like being involved. I used to be the artistic director of a circus company, and I enjoyed that a lot. I think that juggling is hard, and the type of performance I do is very physical, so I don't know that I'll do that forever. I would love to maybe have an entertainment company that works on that. I would love to do more commercial work. I've done like juggling in commercials this year. It's like for like sporting goods stores. They just have us juggling in the background. I would like to do more like high quality work that pays better. That is a little bit more like hit or miss, so that I'm not doing as many gigs, I guess, is my ultimate goal. And wherever that goes, I did a lot of library programs this summer, and that's like a really condensed work period, you know? So like, it's like 2 months out of the year, summer reading programs happen, and you can do just tons of shows, and then you can make a lot of your income for the year in just that 2 months. And juggling's all about, you're a juggler because you want the lifestyle. And you can be very fortunate to have periods of time off if you get lots of good quality periods of time working. So yeah, that's my goal, is to have a more a lifestyle that is a good pace for me. I think that's my ultimate goal. I know that's not a true answer, but
no, it's good.
It's good enough. Yeah,
it's a very good answer. What have you?
Oh, have you ever worked for like Barnum and Bailey or anything like that?
No. So there's still, first of all, there's still a ton of circuses that tour the country.
Okay, so yeah, that's the only circus I know about.
Yeah. So there are lots of circuses.
Is that one still out there?
No, Barnum and Bailey closed. I went to their final show. It was in Long Island. They did their final show in like 2016 or something. I traveled there with the owner of the entertainment company I was working with, and we watched their final show. But they're not gone. They basically just had to restructure. Their model wasn't working anymore. The way they couldn't use elephants, and so I think they'll be back as like a Broadway type show, a smaller show. They won't be an arena show, but they'll be like on stage, and it'll be a version of the circus. So
okay, yeah, because. I mean, that's as far as I know. That's the extent of my knowledge about circuses. They have elephants. They have the ringmaster guy with the lion, and there's 3 rings for some reason.
Yeah.
And there's also Barnum and Bailey used to have their own train.
Yes.
So I was like,
yes,
that's my connection. I like trains.
You know what? Maybe I'll try and get you the photo of me doing like a stacking somebody on my shoulders in front of the Barnum and Bailey train for the promo.
Incredible.
I did that at like the final show.
Well, I'm going to keep I have to. So here's how we do the thumbnails. He's
going to frame it.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to frame it. Probably. No, I'm kidding. It's not even like a cool train. It's just like an Amtrak that they rented out. But nonetheless, it is a train. Yeah, but behind the scenes, we have to like cut you out.
Okay.
Just have you as the thumbnail.
Okay. So I'll send you. What if I send you? I'll send you a cheesy photo of me as a ringmaster.
I'll keep the train part for my own personal files, of course. Yeah, but
we've all seen this already, probably.
What's a circus like nowadays? Do they still do like the elephants and the ring? Do they still do like the classical circus experience? Yeah,
so there's the circus is a lot of different things now. There's still those small family circuses that tour around that are exactly like what you expect. They jump every night, they travel to another city, they set up the small tent. It's usually a 1-ring show. They still have animals, they have a petting zoo, they are half family acts, half like, and then they bring in people and they all have their own trailers they live in, and they do like classic circus. Then there's a lot of entertainment companies that book circus style entertainment that you would book for a party or a corporate event, stuff like that. And then there are like Broadway style, like Cirque du Soleil, Cirque Dreams, like higher production quality circuses. So it's pretty healthy, actually. There's a pretty robust circus what's the word I'm looking for, environment.
Yeah. Very cool.
Nice. I did not know that. I'll have to go check one of those out.
Yeah. It comes with a lot of people practice aerial arts now, like as like a hobby.
I've seen
like
that.
a lot
That's
of
really
studios.
Cool.
So there's that, and so it's just kind of there's this like knowledge, and people do like all the Instagram like acrobats and stuff, you know. So there's a lot of that on TikTok. So I've got that realm too, which is cool.
It's entertainment. It's all over the place.
Very cool.
Yeah. So then at what point in your life then were you like, juggling is something I can do for a career?
Yeah, I was 16 when I first started doing it for money. I was aware of this entertainment company in Cincinnati, and I called the owner. What's that?
Shout out Cincinnati.
Yeah, shout out Cincinnati. Yeah. I live in Columbus now. So I'm not really that far. Yeah, but I was working for this entertainment company. I knew this entertainment company was there, and I had a friend, the person who ran my juggling club, worked for them, and he had graduated a year before. And so one day I'm sitting there, and my parents are like, Brian, you need a summer job. So I called them up, and I'm like, hey, I'm a juggler. I want to work for you guys. And they're like, how old are you? And I said, I'm 16. They're like, call us back when you're 18. And they just hung up on me. And it just so happened that the juggling club president of mine, was in the room with that person, the owner of the company at the time. And he said, who is that? And he's like, oh, some kid named Brian that juggles. He's only 16 though. And he goes, oh, Brian Koenig. And he said, yeah. And one of my specialties is I juggle a lot of objects. It's called numbers juggling. Like I could do like 9, 10 objects at a time in practice. So that was like what I worked on when I was younger though, which was very notable, like for a kid that can juggle a lot. And
that's
he's like,
now.
yeah, I guess so. But he's like, was that Brian Koenig? And the guy said, yeah. And he's like, that kid can juggle 9 balls. And so then my phone rings, and it's the owner, and he's called me back, and he's like, is it true you can juggle 9 balls? And I go, yeah. Because I'm just like, I don't know. And he's like, you should have led with that. Your ass is hired.
Nice.
So yeah, that's literally how I got my start. And then I started doing like lots of stilt walking, balloon twisting, juggling, all that kind of stuff. And then it just morphed into what it is now.
Yeah. So those were all just like tricks of the trade that you picked up as you were going.
Yeah. The more you did, the more work you could get until you were good enough at the one thing you liked doing that you could work enough doing that. So
love that.
Yeah. That's kind of how designer works too.
Yeah.
Completely.
The more things you can do video, motion graphics, et cetera, then you get hired more. So
yeah, this podcast looks great.
Trade.
Looks great, by the way.
Hey, thanks.
Thank you.
It's been a passion project for a while. We have a really good team here who've come up with all of our stuff to make it look good. Yeah. My final question, and the boys may have another question as well, but I have this one, just to kind of help you plug and to sort of sum up the end of the show.
Please plug. We encourage it.
And sure. Michael kind of got into, or I think Michael asked a question that made you sort of mention it. But like you said, people are on TikTok and people are like out there on YouTube making videos and stuff. Do you also like contribute socially, like social media, like to get yourself out there? Is there a place where people can like go and see what you do and watch you perform?
Yeah, sure. Just to plug, I'm on Instagram. That's where I do the most stuff. Brian Throws Up. Brian with an eye.
Oh, good. God, you're such a cool guy.
That's so good.
Well, I tried to. It used to be my name, Brian Koenig, but it was too hard to spell, so nobody followed me. And then eventually, I changed it. The same reason, like on my Venmo is Tip Brian. Like when I plug it in my street shows and stuff, like
right, that's pretty good.
That's very good.
Not that I'm plugging my Venmo right now. Yeah,
you win.
All those people with money that just want to send it to me. Yes, I do use juggling. I've gotten gigs through social media. One of my best paying gigs was commercials that I did. I didn't get it personally through social media, but the guy. A friend of mine is a stunt man, and he is a juggler as well. And they contacted him to do stunts for this commercial. And he then got booked for something bigger, which was to be Daryl's stunt double for The Walking Dead, which is a crazy cool gig. And then he passed. So then they're like, they had won at juggling though, because they found out he could juggle. So they had storyboarded it into the commercial. And he'd already brought on his other juggling friend, and that juggling friend knew me. So then they brought me in. And so just friend of a friend but because of social media, I got that gig. And yeah, there's some jugglers that just do social media work. There's a juggler named Josh Horton. He does, he's got like 500,000 subs on YouTube, and he started off doing Instagram juggling trick shots. So it's an avenue. I don't go super hard on it, but I like using Instagram just for fun and for doing light promotion.
Yeah, for sure. Cool.
Hopefully you're not throwing up too much.
Hey,
that is such a cool username. I went on a kick maybe a week or two ago, just changing my username on Twitter like every 5 minutes, just seeing what was available. The best one that I found was, and it might still be available for anybody out there who wants to take it. It is at Yo Mom's Pool Boy was one that is still available.
A little raunchy there.
Yeah, so if you guys want it, feel free to take it. There are a bunch out there that are really cool, but that's very cool. Koenig throws up. Yeah. Brian throws up.
It's people remember it. It's simple. I like it. So yeah.
Cool. All right. So with that being said, we're gonna end the episode with our favorite segment, which is the quick this. Michael, I believe you hosted last week, so you are going to lead us down this avenue. Yeah. So let me get your timer ready. You got 5 minutes. All right. To close the show with this topic separate from the one that we've talked about this episode.
Yep. Or maybe connected. I don't know.
Or maybe connected. Who knows? Ready? Set. Go.
All right. So I remember growing up, having to wake up super, super early, Northern Kentucky, like getting ready for school and turning, like my parents already had the TV on because they just had to have something on in the background. And so I remember very early on, like listening to just local broadcast news, and that just being like my definition of news as a whole. Just super dry, super boring, talks about depressing shit all the time. It's like, it's either like one or the other. Like, look at this cute animal that can do a trick, or 5 people died, and it's like one or the other. And so for me, like growing up, I explicitly like wanted to avoid the news because I was like, I don't need that in my life. That's just like is way too much mental overhead. However, when I was in like middle school-esque area, like that time in my life, I discovered a network called Comedy Central. Comedy Central, as we all know, was a host of many fantastic shows. Like all of the different, like Comedy Central presents comedian shows, which all of those are still absolute gold mines. South Park is the classic. But then I believe right after or right before South Park came an interpretation of the news that I became a very quick fan of. One that we've all probably heard of, The Daily Show and the subsequent Colbert Report. These two shows were probably my first ever introduction into anything political. And it was so helpful at like such a young age to have these sorts of like conversations being framed in this like nonsensical manner. I mean, you have Colbert basically doing an entire skit where he's playing a character who is trying to do a hard-hitting news report on the state of, I don't know, the 2000s election called like the Great Indecision. There was another one with Jon Stewart. He specifically had a segment on his show that when the war in Iraq started, that would go on every single week called Mesopotamia. And it's just like these spins, like these two comedians and all of the other correspondents that they brought on are so incredibly good at framing the absurdity of the political world and the news world into a way that regular people can interpret it. Because like, how many times have you just gone into like, I don't know, like a hairdresser or like a bar or something, or even like the gym, and like Fox News is on?
Yeah,
and
it's always like, nowadays.
Yeah, especially nowadays. And it's like, it's all just so incredibly dry and depressing and all of this shit. And it's like, I just want to go back to the days where I could turn on Comedy Central and have two fantastic comedians telling me about how, like, the first ever time I heard the meme of like Mitch McConnell looks like a turtle.
He does.
And yeah, and I think one of the biggest and most special things about it is the two comedians at the core of it, Stephen Colbert and Jon Stewart, both incredible comedians. But one of the biggest things that they brought to The Daily Show and the Colbert Report that was very different from what they initially thought of the shows as, was they wanted to bring in their own political spirit and their own ideas and ideologies into the show in a way, so that way it wasn't necessarily to like specifically like poo-poo on certain like political parties or whatnot, but it was more so like there has to be a human element in all forms of entertainment. There has to be some sort of human element. If you are just constantly just like, look at this guy, he's silly, like he said something dumb, that doesn't make anyone laugh, at least not for very long. It's bringing in that human element. I think the perfect representation of that is Jon Stewart's monologue that he did after 9/11. They went on a hiatus from the show for I think like 11 days. And it wasn't until like September, I don't know. I think it was like the 20th or something. Yeah, okay. Something like that. And he opened the show completely, like dropped his facade of like, I'm a comedian. It's just like, I'm just going to tell it straight to you. Like, this is what the world needs right now. Like, comedy isn't going to do anything for the people who died or anything of the sort. It's like, we're going to do our part to just kind of like bring happiness to the world in this time of sadness. Him and Stephen Colbert. And it was from then on that like I noticed a very distinct change in myself, like from how I was able to interpret the political world around me. It's not just like, it's all serious stuff, but at the end of it, have fun with it. People are stupid. People are weird. People say stupid stuff. But it all is real in the end, and it's all special. And I don't know. I had slept in pretty late this morning, and
you're not talking garbage. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
here.
I know. It's
some hard hitting stuff.
Spitting mad truth. One thing that I thought was really interesting about those two shows, they always came on before Mad TV.
That's what it was.
When I would spend the night at my grandparents' house. So I wanted to watch Mad TV because at the time I was an idiot and thought it was better than SNL. Now I know better, of course. But I would watch like that and I'm significantly younger than you, Michael. At least in terms of like our age gap means that I was watching it at like 8 when you were maybe watching it at like 11. 14, right? Or something like that. So I didn't understand what the hell they were talking about. I just knew that they were funny and they talked fast and they had these characters. But I later learned like they are playing characters that they've built.
Absolutely.
Like the stuff that they're saying is mostly said in a sarcastic light. So if they're like getting mad about something, they're pretending to be the other side that they disagree with. And they're like, do you see how ridiculous you look? Which is just like a tactic that I absolutely adore.
It's kind of a straw man, but at the same time, it's a comedic straw man. So,
well, yeah. And I think one of the funniest things that came out of this was like when Jon Stewart went on a old CNN show called Crossfire. It's where Tucker Carlson came from.
Best clip.
Yeah. And they were trying to make him look dumb.
Yeah, they were trying so hard to make Jon Stewart look dumb. And he's just like, the show that comes on before me is puppets.
Yeah.
Like you're
like,
on
but
an
I do
actual
actually he actually knew his stuff though. He was like, well, why did you say this on your show? He's like, because my show's not real. Your show is real and you're saying equally ridiculous things. And they like cut him off, like took him off the show.
Right. And then the other thing that I absolutely loved was I don't remember his name. He used to be a big broadcaster for I think Fox, but he had Stephen Colbert come on. Stephen Colbert came on in character.
Oh, I love this.
And it was just like everything that this other reporter tried to throw at Steven. He's just like, I think, and just like completely took it for a completely like 180 spin.
Yeah.
And it was so wonderful to watch.
There's a YouTube rabbit hole to go down for sure. Watching them do their thing. It's incredible.
We'll link those in the show notes.
That's right. So thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you, Brian, for coming on, and you're so informed. It was so cool. We got to see some juggling. Man, what an awesome, awesome way to
this
start
was
the
an
day.
awesome guest episode.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm just looking back and remembering the last hour and 15 minutes. Just like, wait, all this shit happened.
Yeah.
Chef's kiss.
Go ahead.
No, I just say thanks for having me, guys. It was a great time. I didn't really know what to expect, and it was a pleasure. Hope you didn't get sick of my voice.
Oh, of course
I get
not.
sick of my own voice, so I mean,
Yeah, I get sick of Nick's voice too. If you want to go ahead just for the end of the episode, go ahead and plug one more time, just so anyone who's ending the episode can immediately jump to your stuff.
Including your Venmo.
Yeah. You can just find me. Check me out on Instagram or TikTok, probably at Brian Throws Up. Yeah, I've got a website, but you don't need it.
Fair enough.
Gotcha.
Very cool. If there is anything that you guys want to hear us cover, maybe something that we haven't covered yet, we love to take your guys' suggestions. We'll look into anything. I'll watch anything. We did a episode on Blue Velvet once, and that was a fucking trip, but we did it anyway because somebody suggested it. If you guys got suggestions, you can hit us up in our email. We are entertainthistpodcast@gmail.com. If you want an easier way of hitting us up, you can go to our website. It's entertainthis.net. Scroll all the way to the bottom. There's a little questionnaire that you can fill out. Equally, you can reach out to us on social medias. On Twitter, we are at entertain_this. You can find us on Instagram. We are entertain this podcast. As always, entertain us so we can entertain you, and you can entertain this. We'll see you guys next Friday. Peace.
Bye.
Go.
Special thanks to our guest, Brian Koenig, for coming on the show. Additional commentary on this episode of Entertain This was brought to you by Alex Steele, Michael Savoya, and Nick Mustakangas. Our showrunner and resident fact-checker is Chloe Price. Our theme music is Festival by Aaron Spencer, with additional interstitial music by DJW. Tune in every Friday for new episodes, and thanks for listening.